I guess that this is it. We're 26 in track 2. I will open my camera just for the introduction and then stop sharing to ensure that the best bandwidth exploitation for the track's sake. So welcome. I'm happy that we are quite a few in this important track. My name is Panagiotis Kokinakos. I am a senior researcher and project manager in the National Technical University of Athens, more specifically the Decision Support Systems Laboratory. My interests lie a lot with evidence-based policy making and data-powered decision support. And why here in climate change? For two reasons. First of all, as a laboratory, we have a long track record of activity, publications, and projects in the climate change and energy policy domains. But at the same time, I'm working actually together with one of the presenters here today, with Antonio, in the CIDO, which, as you will see, has its pilot focused on climate change-oriented and climate crisis management-oriented pilot scenarios. So moving forward to the next slides in order to allow for more important discussions from your sides, we will be having 3 presentations plus a discussion. Today I will just offer a very quick introduction and then let the presentations flow. The first presentation will be titled A Sustainable Blue Economy for Climate Neutrality by 2050 in the European Green Deal. Professor Phoebe Koudouri from the Athens University of Economics and Business, Director of Sustainable Development Unit and the EIT Climate Hub in Greece, Athena, also Fellow World Academy of Art and Science, President of the European Association of Environmental and Resource Economic, and also co-chair at SDSN Europe and Greece, will be kindly offering the first one. The second will be provided by Antonio Filograna, that I've already mentioned, from engineering. Antonio is an ICTs expert and coordinator of the Dwight Project that I already referred to. And the third and final one will be provided by Ilia Christandoni. She's a head of the EU project sector in VAEM, as well as a scientific collaborator in the National Hellenic Research Foundation. Upon hearing to the 3 presentations, we will be having a discussion panel focused mainly on the policy level and climate change as an application domain. The aim, the focus is to come up with some policy-oriented recommendations, policy-oriented insights that we will be able to communicate as a first step to the plenary session of today's conference. And of course, as a second step to the policymakers that will be hearing us and willing to receive our input. Now moving to the overall agenda, it's clear what this track is all about. It's about supporting the policy decisions, the policy making around climate change. Climate change affects the lives of us all in the short, mid, and long term, in terms of health, in terms of everyday social and business activity. In Europe, we have seen both the long-term effects, but many of us, I'm from Greece, in Italy, it was the same. We experienced extreme wildfires in this very past summer. So the effects of climate change are here. We're all witnessing the impact that climate change is having to our world, to our environment, to our planet. So I think that it's common sense that there are important and maybe breakthrough policy decisions that need to be taken imminently. So what I would like to do is to not waste any more time and go directly to the presentations and leave as much time as possible for discussion after the three presenters have concluded with their slots. Are there any important notes that you would like to make now prior giving the floor to Professor Kouduri for the first presentation? Okay, so I will be closing my webcam as a first step and then passing the floor to Professor Kouduri. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me try to share a presentation that I hope will be informative for what we try to do. So can I share? Yes, I can share. Very good. So this is mainly to showcase what we are doing in Intelcom Horizon 2020 project. Athena Research Center participates as a partner, and we are trying to showcase how climate change and blue growth can be part of the science and innovation policies. We work as a team from people that are experts in the sustainability transition, meaning the transition to a climate neutral, climate resilient and biodiversity resilient economy that will support the cohesion of the society as well. In terms of the greater things, a greater scale of what we do, we work as an international cluster for research on the sustainability transition, and our aim is to transform our research and innovation results into sustainability action. And we work as a cluster at the Athens University of Economics and Business, where my professorship is the Athena Research and Innovation Center with EIT Climate KIC and the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, where I chair the European and Greek Hub. And of course, all this transition is enabled through research and innovation. It's really a technological and science-driven transition, and it is aided through innovation acceleration and deep demonstration projects. And of course, the upskilling, reskilling of the labor force and the greater community of implementation, the politicians, the policymakers, the NGOs, the businesses, the financial sector, and the civil society as a whole, and the interface of all these implementation stakeholders with science and technology developers is very important for us. So at the moment, we are facing this multiple crises, and of course, with the pandemic and the huge economic recession deriving from a pandemic, climate change and biodiversity collapse are crucial, and they are, of course, global problems, big commons problems, and we all know and acknowledge the fact that they need to be solved through collaboration between regions and nations and even continents, because the world is as resilient as the last country and person in it. These are the current, let's say, policy framework to which we need to provide information in order to meet the needs of the Intelcom project, which is trying to use data, which is trying to create a data-informed policy science interface, and in particular in the living lab that I am working on with regards to climate change and blue growth. So very quickly, we have the SDGs, 17 goals, 169 targets, the Paris Agreement trying to limit the increase in global temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, the European Green Deal that is focusing on climate neutrality by 2050, a reduction of pollution, clean tech leadership for European companies, and of course, a just transition, leave no one behind. The Next Generation EU, which again is our instrument for recovering from COVID, but thankfully it is focused on the vision of the European Green Deal. It is financing green and digital investments, 37% climate related and 20% digital related. And of course, in 2021, we have the climate law, the EU taxonomy that identifies explicitly which investments can be considered as sustainable. And these include climate change, mitigation, adaptation, sustainable use of marine resources and water, circular economy, and biodiversity conversation. And then we have the Fit for 55 package, 13 legislative proposals for the revision of climate policies in the EU, including revisions in the emissions trading system, in the land use directive, in the energy efficiency directive, energy taxation, everything that has to do with mobility, fuels, cars, vans, aviation, maritime, and of course the launch of a social fund for supporting those that are disproportionately affected from climate policies in terms of being vulnerable groups with low income and very exposed to climate extremes event. And this is coming to add to the Just Transition Fund within the budget of the European Green Deal. So we have 1 trillion in the European Green Deal. We have 750 billion in the Next Generation EU, mostly devoted to the Recovery and Resilience Fund. And now we have the new social facility. What we do in Intelcom is very related to a global initiative under UNSDSN, the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is trying to identify the policies, the policy pathways, together with technological and financial pathways that can support blue growth in the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, and the Aral Sea. And it is amazing that this effort is starting within the Intelcom project, which is focusing on new and innovative artificial intelligence services to public administrators and policymakers across Europe for co-creation of an ecosystem that will allow data and intelligence-driven policy design in the field of STI. And we are currently using in the design of our living labs the systems innovation approach. Systems innovation can be understood as a combination of system thinking and the process of innovation, so that to engage in transformative and non-incremental changes in complex systems. The systems approach engages stakeholders and needs an initial mapping and engagement of the stakeholder. It has a multi-level perspective in understanding the context of the problem. It uses visioning and backstaging and niche management. At the moment, we have identified our stakeholders. And as I said before, we are focusing on the effects of climate change on blue economy. Blue economy includes everything that has to do with the use of coastal and marine resources, so energy production from the sea, aquaculture, fisheries, shipping, coastal management, and the coordination of marine spatial planning, so that all these activities can be sustainably run in the sea without segregation of the ecosystem services of seas and oceans, which we know are very important for climate regulation, as they are major sinks for CO2 emissions. So we have identified our enablers, public actors, financiers, NGOs, municipalities, regional development organization. The providers is our institution, Athena Research and Innovation Center, which is the major research center in Greece on information technology. Our users are policymakers and financial institutions. As I indicated before, financial institutions are instrumental in accelerating the transition, both in terms of financing the sustainable activities according to the EU taxonomy, but also because their clients now, at least those that are in Europe and get financed within Europe, needs to submit the corporate sustainability report, which is now very clearly described in the EU taxonomy. The requirements for the sustainability reports are made clear. The information that are going to be introduced in these reports are monitored and assessed and digitally tagged. And of course, the range of companies that are obliged to submit this report, it has increased quite substantially. Big companies that are participants in the stock market, but also all companies that are in regulated markets, that are functioning in regulated markets. And of course, our utilizers are citizens, civil society, research and academia, innovation, technology, and the private sector. These are our current stakeholders and our current stakeholder mapping. If you look at the map, what you have in white boxes is and our stakeholders from the Mediterranean, and in the pink boxes, our stakeholders from the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. And you can see in the bars, the group of the stakeholders that we managed to gather from public administration, policymakers, citizens and civil society, research and education, and innovation and technology, private sector, and financial institutions. And in terms of how we run the living labs, once every 2 months, and we have representative stakeholders from each country and region participating. We have already run 2 regional stakeholder groups, the Mediterranean and the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. These run for about 2 hours. They are happening, unfortunately, virtually using online tools. And we have each time 20 participants. This is the sketch of our recurring living labs. I will just go very quickly through the thematic areas. So the first one is about understanding the gap between knowledge and action. The second one about climate change and energy. The third one about climate change and industry. Then we move to agriculture and food, forest and land use change, and climate change and transport, climate change, building and cities, and then understanding the perspectives of the various stakeholders, bringing together all these perspectives, and finally identifying how these perspectives at different levels, macro, meso, and micro, can be integrated in order to develop the future vision. And once we develop a common future vision that all the stakeholders own and agree with and have co-designed, then we are gonna again engage in a co-design procedure with all of them in order to identify the trajectories of change that will take us from where we are to the co-designed future vision. So we will end up with the submission of a co-creation of the socio-technical roadmap for a transition to blue growth in this particular area. I think I will leave it here because the rest of it is just details within these living labs, and I can give you information about responding to questions that need more details if they arise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Interesting presentation.
I just wanted to clarify that this procedure that we are going through now is the preparatory living labs procedure, which will be finalized as I showed you in the map, and then we will start with the actual living labs of the Intelcom project. So this showcases how much work you need to really engage the stakeholders with in order to produce the ownership feeling and the engagement in co-designing that we think is necessary for having the hope for future implementation of the suggested pathways. Thank you.
Thanks again. Very interesting indeed. It's already I have a concern or so, meaning that there are, as you very nicely presented, quite a few policy level initiatives in the European, but also the global scale, while at the same time, if we go down to the civic engagement level, as you just noted, much effort is needed in order to set up living labs, large workshops, large initiatives, etc., and have people motivated in participating. So this gap is an interesting thing to see how we can address. Thanks again, very nice presentation. And I would now kindly ask Antonio, Mr. Filograna, to take the floor and give us the decision-oriented presentation. Antonio, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Panayotis. Can you see my screen in the full screen mode?
Yes, Antonio.
Okay, so thanks a lot for joining in this track. I'm Antonio Filograna from Engineering Informatica, the project coordinator of the DECIDO. DECIDO means evidence and cloud for more informed and effective policies. Is the project funded by H2020 program and started last 1st of March. And if we want to identify the project with some hashtag, we can say cloud, evidence-based policymaking, EOSC services, and co-creation. We are 14 partners with several expertise, in particular in evidence-based policymaking, data analytics, cloud, EOSC services, and businesses, with different countries of Europe. The mission of the DECIDO is to demonstrate the impact of the adoption of innovative methodologies, but also tools and data in order to enable the effective development of better evidence-based policy making by public authorities. So we want to be the intermediary between, on one side, the public sector, the citizen science world, and the European cloud infrastructure on the other side, exploiting the EOSC services and rely on the storage capacity and processing power of the AGI infrastructure. So Decido has 4 main objectives. The first one is the creation of a bridge between the public authorities and the European Open Science Cloud in order to foster the use of the European cloud infrastructure, services and data to the public authorities, and to encourage and enable the public authorities to use the appropriate infrastructure, services, data and methodology in order to apply a more evidence-informed approach to the policy and to the entire policy life cycle. And the last objective is to identify a set of recommendations in particular in order to address the public authorities through the transition towards the use of the European cloud infrastructure and the application of the evidence and the co-creation in the policy life cycle. We have 3 main outputs we want to provide at the end of the project. The first one is an easy to use web portal in order to support all the policy making actors in all the policy life cycle phases with services and tools in the definition, in managing and evaluation of the policies in a collaborative manner. And starting from this collaborative manner, we want to focus the attention on the involvement of local actors and also the citizen engagement, focus on 3 main topics. On the methodological side, through the co-creation of indicators, the identification of the needs and priorities of the actors in the policy life cycle, and in the data generation by using the citizen science experiments where it is possible. Just to give you a brief example of on how Decido works, we in our pilot, we are going to collect a lot of data coming from different data sources, for example, the IoT, the satellite data, but also the open data. And we want to collect all this data, analyze this data through the use of the EOSC services and the cloud infrastructure provided by EOSC, and in order to extract evidence-based fact to improve the policy. But we are also using the involvement of the local actors in the co-creation activities in order to collect data on one side and analyze data and giving the feedback to the policy creation. We have 4 pilots. The first one is Kajani in Finland, the Turin in Italy, the Greek municipalities, and the Aragon region in Spain, and focused on disaster risk management. So we deal with the forest fires, the flood, and also the power outage. Going deeply in the in pilot by pilot, the pilot in Finland will be focused on the prevention and protection against the forest fire, enabling procedures to mitigate damage to nature, infrastructure, and life. The pilot in Italy wants to improve the design of emergency policies related to floods and weather alerts. And during the development of the project, we added also two other main topics: the response to the pandemic and the psychological protection of the young. The pilot in Greece dealing with the power outage management of the public infrastructure and cultural asset of the Greek municipalities via emergency response mechanism. And the last pilot in the Aragon region in Spain, dealing with the wildfire in order to improve the design of emergency policy related to the wildfire and the management of controlled fires. So starting from data, we want to achieve the decision making finally. And the decision methodology starts with the writing the storytelling within the pilots in order to collect the needs and challenges of all our pilots. Understand what services the European Open Science Cloud can provide and what the pilot can use, and the definition of the Desito data catalog, all the data that pilot needs in order to implement the evidence better policies. But we also collect data from co-creation activities in order to define how we want to use this data. Then we are going to implement the algorithm to analyze those data and visualize this data through the dashboard to take the decision. At this point, we can come back to the first phase in order to give feedback and evaluate the policy. And finally, the last step is improve the policy based on the evidence fact. Talking with the data catalog, so starting from the data and what are the data we are dealing with, we are going to use data coming from the European data portal, from the municipalities, from the co-creation activities, but also GIS data, crowdsourced data, satellite data from Copernicus and Corin, and the EOSC data. In particular, from the open data from the municipalities, we will use flood data of flood areas, main waters, energy consumption, past power outage, in order to construct we need to the historical data in order to measure the improved data when we want to provide evidence-based policy. And we will use also climate data, earthquake data, calendar data, statistical data on the mental health coming from the EOSC data, but also GIS data regarding the flood probability, location and category of municipal buildings, local GIS, and satellite data from Copernicus dealing with the land uses, the vegetation index for the forest fire, and satellite images. In this first 8 months of the project, we are trying to extract the needs and challenges that our pilots face during the identification of the policy. So we had a background work collecting information from the previous project, the past project, the Bing Policy Canvas and Sonnet, identifying 28 needs. Then we have a desk research on more than 100 publications released after the 2019, collecting 33 needs and 3 challenges. And then we pass to the interview the policymaker and the actors in our pilot and also at the European level, validating the 34 needs and 7 challenges. And then we analyze all these, what we achieved. Regarding the desk research, we've found 5 more needs that promote teleworking, open and transparent processing, access service upon request, availability of channel for consuming public services, establishing activity measurement assessment procedure, and 3 new challenges. Employees might be resistant to change, digital divide of senior employees who may be less familiar with new technologies, and be competent at readiness factor. With our 22 interviews, 9 horizontal through the EU policy expert and the public administration representative for 6 Greek public administration, we validate and prioritize the identified needs, and through the interview we also identify new needs and challenges. In particular, for the needs, we identify the new needs with the development of digital skill, and 4 challenges that are employees might not want to be trained in the new technologies. We have a lack of data. We need to be compliant with the GDPR and legislation, and we need to find available results. Just to give you an example of the interview and the result, regarding the use of big data and cloud service technology, only the 33% of the interview answered that they use the big data or cloud service technology. And regarding the European services cloud services, only 29 answered that they are familiar with them, but none of them have used any of these services. How the CIDO project is addressing the identified challenges. Regarding the employees might not be trained in new technologies, we are we want to have the co-creation of a training plan with the stakeholder in order to be aware them on what they want to be trained. Regarding the compliant with GDPR, we have the data privacy impact assessment during all the life or span of the project. Regarding the lack of data, we are building the CIDO data catalog with all the data coming from different data sources, not only local data, but also data coming from also the European data portal and the other source, and in order to apply a cross-fertilization also among the pilot and exchange data among the pilot, we are building the CIDO data catalog. And in order to find available results, we want to leverage on the EOSC service and infrastructure provided through the AGI infrastructure. And what is the expected impact? How the policymaker going to benefit and the society going to benefit from the CIDO project? The policymaker will be able to reduce the time needed to generate good quality services as well as improve policymaking services. The citizen will participate actively and contribute to public policy making, have higher data access for better informed decision in the co-creation activities, and the businesses can accelerate innovation and business development and reduce costs relating to innovation generation. Finally, the research center and scientists will access a large volume of data for scientific purpose given by the data produced by the project. So just to finish the presentation, to say that the CIDO wants to provide all the actors involved in the policy life cycle with the instrument to produce better evidence policy in the disaster risk management. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Antonio. Very interesting presentation. Of course, myself, I'm very familiar with the work since I've been engaged a lot, but I think that very important aspects are dealt with in the CIDO. Same, of course, to the previous presentation. Fortunately or unfortunately, the projects are in a kind of an early stage, so results from the living labs and the pilots are not available. But for example, the insight on policymakers and the stakeholders in general not being at all familiarized with huge initiatives in the European scale, such as EOSC, is kind of a huge concern. That said, I would kindly invite Ms. Ilia Christandoni to take the floor and give us the third and final presentation of the track. Ilia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is Ilia Christandoni. I'm representing the MSA. Let me share my screen first. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, we can hear you, and we can see your screen now.
Okay, and I will also stop my video also for bandwidth. Maybe better. It's better for the bandwidth. Okay, so I am here representing them, that it is actually the IT company of the city of Athens, and I will contribute to this workshop mentioning what we are doing in terms of the Dwight Horizon 2020 project that refers to the digital urban European twins, so the creation of digital twins for cities and regions. Also in the workshop, the coordinator Liven is present, and my colleague Dimitra from the EU sector of DAEM. Firstly, maybe I can present a little bit about our organization that refers to the city of Athens. So DAEM is not the environmental agency of the city of Athens, but it is an agency of the city that offers the IT tools, and it's following the municipality of Athens, that is the largest city of Greece, towards its journey to a more digital era, let's say. So we are here in participating in European projects, usually to introduce to the city innovative tools to that direction. And especially from the Dwight Project, we also have a more, let's say, green approach, and we hope that the testing of this pilot can kind of contribute to the climate change that the city is trying to target as well. So the Dwight Project, just to have a small introduction. Sorry for that. The Dwight Project is referring mainly to the creation of digital twins for cities and regions. So the concept of digital twins comes initially from the private sector, and now it is trying to move towards the city administration and see how this can contribute to the city environment. It actually creates digital replicas or representations of any system. So we have to imagine the city as a system with inputs and outputs, if this is possible, because it's a very dynamic environment. So from the digital twins, we can mimic the environment of a system and see from the data that they are collected real time, train the models and their algorithms in order to create decision and create what if scenarios. The benefit of this concept is that, first of all, the interfaces and the visualization of a system can make it easier to understand for everybody. and especially for a city, it makes a more integrated view of the city, and the data that they are fed into the system can be easier to interpret and support the decision making. So support decisions, support strategies and processes, because you can in some way see what is going to be the result of your decision on your individual replica. So within this context, I'm got engaged with the Dwight Project, that it is going to test this concept not only in Athens, but in another city, which is Pilsen in Czech Republic, and also in the in the region of Flanders in Belgium. The difference between the three pilots is that for Athens here locally, the concept is quite different, because at the moment there is not such an innovative tool already in the past years. So we want to see and test if the digital twin can become a smart hub for the green planning. And we want within this project maybe to perform what-if analysis in order to see if we can have decisions and strategies towards green routing and alternative maybe mobility. So the point is to unify all the data sources that they are available, both traffic, environmental, public mobility, etc. And from this data to see if we can actually plan plan decisions in Athens that they can be effective and have better outputs than it's already done. And through this whole cycle, of course, we would like to have the engagement of the citizens. We kind of have a co-creation approach, as also was mentioned from the previous project. Here we want to involve citizens in this cycle as maybe testers of these strategies. We want to engage them in order to suggest solutions. And at the latter stage, we had initially thought that they could be also data sensors themselves or providers, because they are real-time moving data within the city, data sources. But we will do this in the next project that it is launched after Duet, which is called Compare, and it's just started. So the Athens pilot within Duet, the main context, of course, is that it's a transformation of Athens. But what we want to see is that if we can tackle, first of all, the challenges of a metropolitan city, which means that we have a lot of traffic and environmental issues. And especially here in Greece, we have a lot of lack of green routes and green spaces within the city. The urban environment is not user-friendly, is not environmental friendly in general. So we want to see if we can improve that. Especially for Athens, one of the main challenges that we are already trying to tackle is the lack of data sources. The data sources that they are available in Greece generally are either scarce or so they are not unified. Maybe they are in format that you cannot actually use, or they are not actually dynamic in real time. Some of them are just historical data. So these are the basic challenges and context for us at the moment. So to that direction, we are under Duet trying to create a pool of data sets, let's say, for Athens. So apart from the horizontal part that refers to the terrain that we use for Athens and the map layers for the 3D model, we have data sets on spatial planning that come mainly from the municipality. So boundaries of the cities of Athens and boundaries of the different municipalities that they are under the Attica region, where Athens is located, and traffic and environmental problems are strictly interconnected between the municipalities of all the region. And then we have some mobility data from public transport, such as itineraries and timetables, and recently added to the traffic data from open sensors that they are available through the ministry and the region of Attica. And then we plan to correlate this with air quality data that they are available from other research initiatives and from research institutes institutes active and the relative ministry. To that direction, and because we had a lot of this is let's say a very hot point for us, and like a hot potato, is we also have involved with us a partner that it is TIFOS, and they are responsible for open access both data sets and software, and to that we have a partner to this let's say journey. So what we plan to do in Athens is to correlate all the data that we have available, and that they can be fed in one unified system that currently this thing does not exist in Greece before. So traffic, transport, and environmental data, and we want to go towards green routing. So the plan is and it's currently developed a dashboard and a digital twin, and we want to interconnect the shady places, green places, and see if several of the roads or areas of Athens, we can actually transform them to pedestrian roads and see the impact of that to the traffic all around and to the environment in general. There is a whole set of pedestrian roads within the municipality that they are foreseen but not implemented yet due to bureaucracy reasons, due to decisions that they are not yet taken. And so we will use this data set of foreseen pedestrian roads and perform what-if scenarios there. And of course, visualize all these policies in order to have a more evidence-based decision. And in the end, or within the cycle, we plan to engage the citizens as well for feedback and propositions. So what is currently developing is the Athens Dashboard for Duet. So we have collected traffic data that come from the data.gov.gr, which is the biggest portal in a national level of open data sources. There are more than 40 sensors in the Attica region. I'm mainly focusing on traffic data because they are not openly accessible in Greece. They are either private or they are owned by the from the Greek police or Greek ministries that they do not open them for research purposes, unfortunately. So in this dashboard, we want to measure the impact of changes and start training and feeding the algorithms for our Duet pilot. So what you can do actually in this dashboard is initially select 2 periods for comparison, 2 calendar periods, select a specific sensor that you want to visualize, and then there is a comparison between the 2 sensors that you can compare the average number of cars per hour. You can have the number of cars, the aggregated number of cars per for each weekday. In this example here, I chose as a period one Monday. Between 2 different calendar days, 2 different Mondays, let's say, because it's usually the days that has the most traffic. And then you can also visualize the number of cars for this specific time window. What is the expected impact from this? Of course, we would like to support policy making towards a greener city for Athens, which means that we can propose measures that their impact will be predicted, and we can be sure that they will be effective and successful in some way. And also something that we are looking for is something like more democratic policy making, so the inclusion of citizens in all this process, as I have mentioned before. One main point is, especially when we refer to the climate change of a city, is to create a network of actors, because this affects both citizens, research providers, the city ecosystem, etc. The democratic policy making also has to do with the increase of trust of citizens towards the city and its decisions. So if people become part of it, and they have to, when we're referring to climate change, then everything is more transparent and effective. So more or less, this is our contribution to that. I would like to thank you very much. And of course, we are here for the discussion and more questions.
Thank you very much, Ilya. Very to the point presentation, and since I'm kind of an Athenian myself, I really understand the importance of the issues you are tackling, as well as the challenge that you presented on not being in the position to collect or find or get data that would facilitate your work. It's an issue that I know that we have in Greece, but from the up-to-date discussions that we had today, I guess it's broader than the Greek landscape. So I'm returning the screen to me. I'm just sharing again. Give me one moment. Laptop chose to freeze. So these were the three presentations kindly provided by our speakers today. I think that we tackled a rather broad spectrum of issues, both from the ICT but also from the application perspective. So I think it's time for the panel discussion. Prior to deep diving in the four questions that you already see in my slide, are there any questions from the participants that you would like to directly address to Phoebe, Antonio, or Ilya? I guess not. So let's move directly to the questions. The first is the questions are firstly addressed to the three speakers, to Phoebe, Antonio, and Ilya, and then whoever else would like to take the floor and provide an answer, please, you're more than welcome to do so. We have more than a quarter of an hour to complete this panel. So the first question is, what is the current situation of evidence-based policy making in each of your fields? And why do you consider this to be important? Of course, if you consider this to be important. Phoebe, could you please take the floor first?
Yes, of course. Of course, it is important. Evidence-based policy making is what creates the real background and the backbone for efficient policy making. So this is what we've been trying to do for many years now, and actually trying to create a connection, an interface between science, technology, and policy making. So it is important that our policy making is informed by data, by models, by research results, by technological developments, because these are mainly the tools that will actually give the mobilizers for the implementation of whatever policy is there. So it is important to talk to the policymakers and also educate the policymakers in order to understand the problems in order to have a firm science-based understanding of the problem, in order to have a very firm understanding of the possible solutions of the problem they are facing, and in order to have robust support with regards to the data, the models, and the tools that are there to be used and support the solution pathways. So it's very important, and to be honest, there is no other way to make policy that you can hope it will be implemented and will be implemented in an efficient and successful way for the welfare of the citizens. There is no other way to do it. And I really hope that at least in Europe, we've reached that stage of maturity that these bridges between science, technology, policy are built, and these multiple bridges create the background for real engagement of all the stakeholders, the science, the technology developers, the politicians, the policymakers, the civil society, and of course, the groups of businessmen, entrepreneurs, financial institutions, and NGOs.
I would like to add, and starting from what Phoebe already said, that in particular in the disasters risk management, we have, but I think also in the other fields, we have a lack of data, as we already said in our presentation, but also a lack of methodologies and recommendation that can support all the policy actors to have to build better policies. So we need to work on this topic in order to provide useful tools, methodologies to create policies. Because sometimes, for example, we have data already on the paper, or not used data, but we have a lot of data coming from different data sources, and the citizens are not involved in the building of the policy. So this is the main problem that we faced within the pilot.
Just to elaborate maybe a little bit on the two colleagues, maybe also I'm moving to the next question. I'm not so sure about that. As part of, let's say, the ecosystem of a municipality, the feedback that we have is generally that regarding policy making, there is a need for some tools, but the tools that they are complementary to the legacy and, let's say, to the old-fashioned way that policy making is being done, so the old-fashioned way that decisions are being made. So the cities need tools that they can actually integrate in the everyday system, and they are easy to use and they can be complementary. And of course, if they are so much effective, they can be adopted in a full way, let's say, and replace what is already, what are the already procedures, but you cannot completely replace them from step one, let's say. So this is one of the basic needs. And also regarding the data, for sure, there is also some lack of resources. So there has to be a movement that we can actually, some initiatives that we can actually show that if you invest in this field, it's going to be also cost effective, let's say. Apart from the environmental part, cities and urban environments have something to gain if they invest actually on that, even also on buying data, for example. From private actors, apart from partnering with the science field.
Thank you very much. Prior giving the floor to Fabio Perosini, that has raised his hand, I just, I'm wrapping up what was discussed. I got very, very interesting insights. The first of all is the need for multidisciplinarity in the teams that are engaged with evidence-based and data-based policy making. Then the need for lifelong education of policymakers in order for them to be up to date with the initiatives that are going on, maybe in the context of re or upskilling in the constant manner. Then lack of data is, I think, a commonplace in all your your discussions and points of view, and the fact that new, innovative, data-powered, whatever initiatives should first react as complementing traditional policy-making ways and not go to directly disrupting the way that things are done at the moment. And last but not least, many thanks, Ilya, for bringing it forward. I think that the budget thing, the cost effectiveness of all initiatives is important for the public sector, as nothing can be done in a white page without taking into consideration the budgetary discussion. Fabio, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot. Sorry. Okay, now I think. Can you listen now?
Yes, it's much better.
Okay, great. So I think Ilya provided a very interesting point of view, because what we are experiencing also in the CIDO project is that often data available are very precise, but in a way they are not so close to citizen perception. And this is a gap that needs to be addressed in the future. And we really need to be very close to citizens in order to understand and to collect data that are close to their feeling. But this is a big issue, because when we are talking about traditional data, so for instance, GIS data or let's say statistic data, we are quite experienced in collecting them, while we have to collect the feeling, indicator of the feeling of the citizen. For instance, we are talking about climate change. But what is the feeling? What is the awareness of citizens around the climate change? This is a very wide. There is a very wide range of different feeling inside the citizen about that. And the only way to get their indicator is to go to meet them and to interview them, or to try to use, for instance, social media to try to get some feedback of what is the situation. And to me, let's say what, for instance, we are experiencing in Turin is that we have to adopt probably a more flexible, I call it a fluid approach, because we really need those data for the future. And it is very interesting to understand how we can collect those data and how we can analyze it, probably with the help of the user themselves, to better understand the meaning of them. That is the issue and the possible further research action that we could address in my mind.
Thank you, Fabio. I guess we have a second common place here, again related to data. The first one was the lack of data, but then there seems to be a gap, as Fabio correctly noted, that that needs to be covered, meaning the data that we, in terms of policy making, that are originating from specific sources, which are citizen agnostic in a sense, while an investment to closer or real citizen data should be the case in some or most of the cases. Very interesting. Thanks to all for that offered their opinions. Then the second question is, which are the needs to work towards evidence-based policy making that you have identified in your field? I guess, as Ilya noted, that we have, with the first question-oriented discussion, we have covered a bit this one. However, if any of the three of the presenters would like to add specific needs, sorry for being a bit pressing, but we're supposed to be back in the plenary session in 4 minutes, and it's a pity because of discussion.
That according to the Ilya, in our pilot, the main needs was the development of digital skills that is in line with the use of the tools that support the entire life cycle of the policies.
Yes, this is very important. What Antonio is saying is very important. But and if I wanted to say to map exactly what we need is to really work with the policymakers in order to understand how they can handle not just data needs, but the whole understanding that is needed in order to solve the problems they are facing. And the understanding that is needed is very interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. So it is important when you talk with these people that basically come from one discipline and need to understand how to use data and tools and even models that are truly interdisciplinary to increase their capacity to do so. And one aspect of the interdisciplinarity is, of course, the financial capacity and the ability to merge different initiatives and ongoing projects in order to achieve cost-effective solutions that are going to be good enough in tackling the problems they are facing. So they really need to have a holistic framework, and I'm afraid that is a very difficult thing to have capacity for.
Very nice, very interesting note. Thanks, Phoebe. I'm trying at the same time to gain some more time for our track, but it seems that we should be back in 2 minutes in the main track of the conference. So I'm skipping the third question because we're climate change, we're talking climate-oriented discussion. So any local pilot is important for Europe. This is not to be discussed at all, I think. So if I might, one recommendation per presenter, if you had the chance to provide one core recommendation to policymakers towards evidence-based policymaking, which would that be? One phrase from each one of you, and then back to the main track.
Capacity building. Capacity building for the deep understanding of the problems they are facing, and ability for procurement that will allow them to attract the right consultants to provide them with co-designing capacity. So they work with the right teams in order to become, at some point in time, independent and really have the capacity to deal with the